so much. I think that segues us very well. We don't have enough signings, so how do we even increase the conversion rate into openings? There's clearly a gap there, and we're going to discuss how we can overcome that gap from signings into openings and increase the conversion. Please help me welcome on stage our moderator for this conversation, Oussama El Kadiri. A round of applause, please. Just trying to spot you there. Enjoy, Chef.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome on stage Mr. Khalil Manji, partner of CHIC, compagnie hôtelière immobilière du Congo, and Erwan Garnier, Senior Director of Development at Radisson. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
So it was a great previous presentation that was discussing the pipeline and the signings, essentially. And we did note an important number, which was 38%. So 38% is the conversion between signings and effective openings. And this is the reason why we're here today. So how to boost conversion from signing to opening. So we'll start with a high-level question. What are the main reasons behind this phenomenon? We'll start with you, Erwan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Oussama. Thank you, Benj, for inviting us. What is the question exactly?
So what are the biggest reasons you have seen essentially behind the sort of low conversion between signing and openings, essentially?
There is multiple factors. This is a challenge we have in Africa. One of the key factors for those hurdles is we see overall a lack of experience from the promoter and the investors that are first-timers into hotel development and treating hotel development as a separate real estate project, much more complicated. The most common element is the lack of funding, financing, which is often connected with the costing analysis. But first and foremost, if you go back into the process of hotel development, there is often a lack of understanding into the market opportunity and the feasibility. So overall, as Radisson, we have put the strategy of accelerating our conversion based on the fact that in Africa, if you take as a whole, it takes about 4 to 5 years to develop a hotel. If you compare to Europe, it's about 2 years. So we put in a lot of due diligence in order to ensure that our partners have the right support from day one in order to understand the market and look at the opportunity, and obviously hire the right professional team that will come with the skill and the experience that often the partner do not have, and thus have the right costing strategy and have the right funding strategy to make the project stack up and materialize.
No, fantastic, thank you. So essentially, to summarize, you mentioned lack of experience, some investors or developers tackling the hospitality asset class as their first development, and some financing issues as well, and you mitigating that risk by partnering up with them to help that out. You, Khalil, as an owner, what sort of additional factors, or maybe the same, you have noticed?
No, I think Erwan mentioned it, right? It's the lack of expertise. A lot of the investors today in Africa are in real estate development, so hospitality is a different branch, different division of their real estate arm. And a lot of them think that because they've done resi, commercial, they can do hotels as well. And I think that lack of expertise, they get shocked when they realize they're not meeting budget, not meeting timeline. And that where the issue rises. And I think to mitigate that, they need to have the right infrastructure within their company. And that's a mistake we made as well. We were hopeful that we would open our first hotel in 3 years. We did it in 4 years. I blame COVID. The second one took 5 years, and the third one took also 5 years. But when we realized that gap, we hired the right people, we hired the right consultants, and I think our fourth hotel and our fifth hotel will be on time and hopefully not far from budget.
Fantastic. So essentially, what you mentioned here is a lack of, I'd say, right costing and maybe the project management aspect of it. So maybe we'll go back to the financing part. Financing is definitely an issue in order to have that sort of capital stack up and to deliver and have it costed properly.
I don't think it's working.
Sorry. So Erwan, what innovative financing models have you seen recently which are aiming to mitigate that financing risk?
There is multiple financing models that we've used, to accelerate our expansion. One of them is public-private partnership, which, like at Radisson Blue Kigali, which allowed us to access prime land and have, let's say, tax incentive for the promoter. Another innovative structuring is what we see mostly in Africa is sectional title, and this is our first hotel in Africa in 2000, which is a Radisson Collection, Cape Town waterfront, was built under this model of sectional title.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you explain what that sectional title means for those who are less familiar with it?
Sectional title is in fact, you create, you cut the titles, if I can speak like this, in a different space, which allows to have multiple investors into one property. So in this case, we have 8 sectional titles, so 8 owners, if you want, for the same property. So it allows you to have lower entry and allowing to raise when financing is a challenge. We've also been successful at having the investor being the developer and the construction company. So, for example, in Radisson Blue Niamey, the owner has built the hotel. It's a construction company from Turkey, and so they've been able to. It's a record for us. They've been able to build a hotel of 190 keys in less than 12 months. But the structure was a bit different because the whole game was to open as fast as possible. And instead of having 200 or 300 construction workers on site, we had 2,000. So you increase by a large amount, but also your financing is much faster to reimburse. So this has been some of the example that allowed us to accelerate the structure, the financing, and so the opening.
That's interesting to see that financing sometimes can cost more than multiplying your workforce by 10.
Yes.
So it's a great way to tackle it. Khalil, in terms of development finance, you do have as well a bridge to gap, a gap to bridge. Sorry. What sort of tools did you use? And we were discussing repatriation risks as well. Can you give some more flavor on that?
Correct. So, in developed markets like South Africa, Kenya, Tanzania, you've got the right vehicles, especially for the hospitality sector. In markets like Congo, Angola, and less developed markets, those types of financing that we're looking for are not there. When I look at a resi project, completion within 2 years, I can sell apartments off plans, so I don't need as much. Whereas a hospitality project that usually takes about minimum 4 years, you only start getting an income, a revenue, after 4.5 years, 6 months after the opening. So you need longer tenures, you need longer grace periods. So the DFIs, the banks, are not adapted to that in some of the markets. And this is why for our projects, we relied mostly on our own capital. But I think that now that we've established ourselves within Congo, the banks have an appetite to really develop what we need for our future projects as well. And I think that once we go to other African countries, we will show the success stories of Congo there as well, and we'll be able to tailor-made the right financing. In terms of repatriation, again, it differs from country to country. Congo is a dollarized economy. It's much easier for me to repatriate the funds and to pay suppliers as well. Whereas Angola, once we activate a transfer, it takes 3 to 6 months for those funds to leave the country. Now, I've been debited from my account, but it takes 3 to 6 months for it to reach the end user. So we have to have funds stuck for 6 months to pay suppliers. And if we don't pay them on time, we don't get what we need for. So it's capital intensive. So it is a risk, but it differs from country to country.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Very interesting insights, and very interesting to see as well the impact of cash flow on the operations and to plan that properly. In terms of financing, we've discussed. Now we'll move on to develop a capacity to execute and to develop. Maybe before that, we'll just mention the currency volatility as well. So in the African continent, there is a lot of volatility. Currency is impacted in many of these countries, and it creates a risk for readability of the investment, a risk for investment returns. So how do we mitigate that in these type of geographies, Erwan?
Yeah, currency volatility is a big challenge for the hospitality industry in general in Africa. If you look at Nigeria, it's a big example where we've seen the cost of development doubling in the last few years and making a project not viable. And this is the reason why we see that there is very little development happening. We see a lot of signings, and we've seen on Trevor's report, but the opening is a very different game. It's a city that has 20 million people, and I think we have less than 10 openings and less than 5 branded openings in the last few years. And the reason is obviously the governmental situation, but the currency volatility. So answering that is not simple. One of the solutions is obviously to have a blended financing, because at the end of the day, what's happening is most of the time the cost of development is in hard currency, because most of the material and most of the professional comes from abroad, while the revenue that you're making when the hotel is open comes in local currency. So there is already a disconnect here. So the pricing, having a blended pricing, allows you to price when the hotel is open, obviously, is to price to locals in local currency and price with international companies or international customers in hard currency or foreign currency. So that's one of the elements that we've been implementing in our hotels in Nigeria. Another one is related to the financing, is having a blended financing, allowing to have a mix of local and international currency. And finally, it's negotiating with local vendors and local suppliers in order to have as much as possible of your development material and development cost in local currency.
Thank you. That's very interesting. I'm just checking, is the time that I see here the time that is really allocated to us, or was there some delay? Just wishful thinking. Understood. I think in this case we'll jump into one of the questions, which is what you see in terms of overview, whether in policy, financing, industry best practice, generally speaking, to enhance these conversions. And I'll ask each one of you to give your view on that. Please go
Sir,
ahead.
can you just repeat the question?
So how you can, I'd say, mix and match between policy, best practice, capacity accumulation, and any type of external factors as well, so internal, external factors that could impact that.
Look, I think in terms of governance, within governments, there needs to be more talk. I look at Congo, for example, I've got the Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Art. They all come in these silos and tax us and levy fees on us on different things. So I think that the governments, whether it's in Congo, whether it's in other African countries, they need to talk internally and see how to promote growth. We've heard over and over today and yesterday that, for example, Minister Delil said, for every 10 keys, you're creating 9 direct jobs and 26 indirect jobs. So I think if that information is relayed to them, they might be more prone to really help investors and hospitality. In terms of best practices, look, we said it, capacity. You need to have good capacity within your organizations. And a lot of people tend to look outside. There is great capacity within Africa. You've got great hospitality schools in East Africa, in South Africa. So consultants as well. We started looking at consultants within the continent, whereas a lot of people think they have to go outside of the continent. And in terms of best practices, it's also within our organizations. And again, if I go back to the government, governments need to look at success stories within Africa. See what's happening in Kenya and Tanzania and South Africa. They'd love to travel to Dubai, but there are success stories over here. So let's get the best practices over here.
Thank you very much. That's amazing. Erwan, any additional?
On a positive note, with regards to the support of the government, and we positively see now what's happening in Morocco. And Morocco is quite a business case, because the kingdom and His Majesty has put a lot of focus into hospitality and tourism expansion by creating a fund and giving a lot of infrastructure development, whether it's airport, roads, and hotels as well. Supporting the renovation of existing hotels by giving tax incentive, creating a fund called Fund Mohammed VI by providing a lot of access to funding and access to DFI via this fund for new hotels in order to develop the key cities. So there is clearly a vision and an action plan being done at the highest level that we already see the result happening. So positively, yes, the governmental support is clearly walking the talk.
Thank you very much, both of you, for your time and for this insightful discussion. I think we'll wrap it up today.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.